Hello everyone, welcome to the next e-lecture. Myself, Professor Neha Sharma from Department of Computer Engineering, KK Wagh Institute of Engineering Education and Research, Nashik. We are NAC A accredited and NBA accredited for 8 branches. So as you all know that in this particular lecture series, we are discussing one of the laboratory course from final year computer engineering 2015 syllabus of Savitribai Phule Pune University, and this particular course has companion courses of data analytics, artificial intelligence, as well as high performance computing. It has a term work of 50 marks and practical of 50 marks. So in this particular lecture we are going to discuss in continuation, we are going to discuss the next assignment of the course Laboratory Practice 1. So that is assignment number 2 of the third section of this particular course. So before we move on to the discussion and actually discuss on the particular assignment, let us see what are the objectives and the outcomes. So the objective of this particular lab assignment is to implement naive-based classification algorithm on PIMA Indian database diabetes dataset. So at the end of this particular lecture, we will be able to load the data from a CSV file, then split it into two parts, that is the training dataset and the testing dataset. We will be able to summarize the properties in the training dataset. We will be able to calculate the probabilities and make the predictions, and we will also be able to classify the samples from test dataset and have a summarized training dataset. So these are the objectives and the outcomes. Now let's look at the problem statement. So as per the university syllabus, you can see here, this is the problem statement for the next assignment. We have to download the PIMA Indians diabetes dataset, and on that particular dataset we have to use the naive-based algorithm for classification purpose. So let us now start with the assignment. Now before we actually move on to the code and discuss what is the input, what is the output, the main important thing that we must properly understand here is we have to implement naive-based classification algorithm. Okay, so we'll discuss first about what is this naive-based classifier. Now as this is one of the algorithms used for classification purposes, we all know that classification is a kind of supervised learning technique where we are given with a data set along with the labels. So this particular naive-based classifier is used for prediction or used to classify the test data set. So as the name tells you, naive-based classifier, this particular classifier is based on the Bayes theorem. So let us now discuss the Bayes theorem and then we'll move on to the input-output of the assignment. So the Bayes theorem says that if you have two events A and B, and if these two events are independent of each other, then we say that probability of A given B is written as P of A oblique B. So B is given to you, so that is our independent feature, and A is not given to you, that is our outcome variable, so that is our dependent feature. Okay, so P of A given B is equal to probability of B given A into probability of A divided by probability of B. Okay, so this is what our Bayes theorem tells us, right? So now in this case, P of A given B and P of B given A, that is this and this, these are called as conditional probabilities because of this oblique. Okay, because it is not a pure probability, it says probability of A when B is given. Similarly, this says probability of B when A is given, that is why it is called as conditional probability. Similarly, this P of A and P of B, P of A and P of B, they are called as marginal probabilities. Okay, so that is one aspect of looking at it. Another important thing is, now let us switch from this to this diagram. okay, as it is more relevant in our case. So in our case we will be given with a data set which will have number of input features, and there will be one feature as the output feature, or that will be our outcome variable. Okay, so let us say here in this case C is our outcome variable, okay, and X is our independent feature. So in our case X will be not a single variable but multiple variables, because we will have in our data set we will have multiple features, right? Okay, so if the same formula, if you put it up here, it will be P of C given X is equal to P of X given C into P of C divided by P of X. Okay, now another terminology of looking at it is this conditional probability, that is P of C given X, is also called as posterior probability. Then P of X given C is called as likelihood. P of C is called as the prior probability, and P of X is called as predictor prior probability, or in some other terminology it is also called as evidence. Why we call this as evidence? Because it is given to us. Yeah, this is given to us. B is P of A given B, that means B is given, so that is used as an evidence. Okay, so that is another terminology. You call this as posterior probability, you call this as likelihood, this is class prior probability, and this is predictor prior probability or the evidence. Okay, now in our case X, as I have already told, X is not a single feature, it is multiple features, because we are having multiple input variables. So in that case we can write P of C given X, if X is a set of features, say x1, x2, x3, x4 up till xn, then we can write this as P of x1 given C into P of x2 given C into P of x3 given C dot 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 up till P of xn given C into P of C. So this was all about the Bayes theorem. Okay, so using this particular Bayes theorem, we will be trying to predict the outcome, the value of the outcome variable for the given test sample. Okay, so this is what exactly we have to do in our assignment. So now let us switch to the discussion on our assignment. So now very important thing for any particular assignment is what is our input. So in our case, as it is clearly mentioned in the problem statement itself, we have to work on PIMA Indians diabetes data set. So let us first have a look at the data set. You can see here number of times pregnant, glucose concentration, blood pressure, skin thickness, serum, BMI, diabetes functionality, age, all these are our independent features, that is these are our set of input variables. And the last, that is class, which is our categorical variable, that is our outcome variable. So in this case the outcome variable is binary because it has either value 1 or 0. 1 indicates maybe the person has diabetes, 0 indicates doesn't have. Okay, so this is our input data set. So these were the features that we have already seen in the data set, right? Okay, then output, in our case in output we will be getting the summary of the training data set. We have to display the probabilities that we are trying, using, if we have used the name based classifier, then what exactly is our prediction, how much % our prediction is correct. So we have to use certain performance measures to display that. So for that we will be using confusion matrix. We will be using 3 performance measures: precision, recall, F1 score and support. So you will see that all these things will be there as your output. Okay, then programming language for this particular assignment, let us use Python. Okay, now let us go to the demo. Okay, so this is our assignment. The very first thing, we will be using pandas, so we import pandas as PD. Then we have to work on the PIMA Indians diabetes data set. So using pd.read CSV, I am loading the data set in data_set. Okay, now once I load the data set in a particular data frame, then I want to display the data set information. So for that purpose, in the previous assignment we have also seen the function that is used to display the data set information is df.info. So in our case it is dataset.info. So till here let us execute our program and see what is the exact information that is being displayed. So you can see here it is showing the number of columns. This is number of columns, this is the name of each column, then this is 768 is displayed here, means what it indicates, in our data set we have 768 records in total. Okay, then we have a non-null count. So our data set does not have any null values, so all 768 it is showing non-null. Okay, and the last column you can see here in the output is d type, that is for the data type of that respective column. Okay, so you can see here most of the features are of type int, and only BMI and diabetes funct are of type float. So that is all about the display of data set information. Now as it is already mentioned, you have to display summary information of the data set. So we have already seen, for that purpose we use the function df.describe. So in our case we will use dataset.describe. Okay, so let's see what it displays. Yes, you can see here for every column it is displaying the count, number of records in that particular column, then mean is displayed, standard deviation, minimum, then 25% that is the first quartile, 50% that is the median, second quartile, and 75% that is the third quartile, and the max values from each of these columns are being displayed. Okay, so that is the information that is displayed. Now again, if I want to only check the data types of each of the variables, then in that case I can use df.dtypes. So it will display the data types, you can see here. Okay, now we move on to the assignment. Now as you know that in the problem statement it is mentioned, what we have to do is we have to divide our data set into training data set and testing data set. Okay, now for this purpose we must understand one thing is, in our data set we have two types of variables. One is independent variables, that is the input features, and another is the dependent variables, that is the output feature. Okay, so let us separate that into x and y. Okay, so let us say in my x I want all the independent variables, and in y I want all the dependent variables. So what I will do, I will use the function df.ilog. Okay, what parameters we are passing? The first parameter indicates how many amount of rows you want to include. So we want to include all the rows, that is why you can see before colon also we have not mentioned anything, after colon also we have not mentioned anything. If I write, suppose instead of this, if I write say for example 2:4, that means it indicates from second to fourth row I want to include, right? So in this case we want to include all the rows, that is why nothing is mentioned, only colon is mentioned here. Then second part refers to how many columns you want to include. So in this case we want to include all the columns also, because except the last column, because last column indicates, last column is for our output variable or the outcome variable or the response variable. So I don't want to include the last column, that is why all columns excluding the last, that is why here it is mentioned -1, that is -1 indicates we have to exclude the last column. So that means in x now we have all the rows and all the columns except the last column, right? Similarly for y it will be, first parameter remains as it is, that is only colon, comma, and I only want the last column, all rows but only of the last column, that is why here only value -1 is mentioned. Okay, so now you have all input variables in X and all output variables in Y. That is, only a single output variable is there, so Y contains the output variable. Okay, so now let us try to display the head. Head indicates, head function will display only first few rows of the respective attribute. So you can see here only 5 rows are being displayed of each of these columns, okay, of X and also of Y. So IV indicates independent variable and DV indicates the dependent variable. Okay, now let us say I want to find out if there are any missing values, although we have already checked, but just to show how it works, if I want to check how many missing values are there, we have to simply use the function dot is null dot any. So you can see here in X also and in Y also I want to check. So X dot is null parenthesis dot any. Okay, similarly for Y, let us execute this. So it is showing all values as false, which indicates there are no null values in our data set, right? Okay, now in the problem definition we have seen we have to display the summary information of our data set. So for that let us use x.info. Yes, so this is the summary information. We have already displayed it before. Then this, using x dot values and y dot values, I am actually converting it into a NumPy array. So just to check whether it is converted or not, I have used the function type of x and type of y. So you can see here in the output it is now converted into a NumPy array, okay, n dimensional array. So that is what is being displayed. Now we move on to our actual assignment. So the first part of the problem statement was we have to split our data set into training data set and testing data set. Okay, as of now we have split our data set into two parts, X and Y. X contains independent variables, Y contains dependent variables. Now we have to again split this X and Y into training data set and testing data set. Now how do we split? Now in the sklearn model we already have a package called train_test_split. So we have to import that package from sklearn model selection. So you can see here from sklearn model_selection we have to import train_test_split. Okay, so if you just put your cursor here, it will show you all the information. Yes, okay, so it splits arrays or matrices into random training and test subsets. Okay, so now how do we split? I mean, what percent of the data set should be considered as training data set and what percent of it should be considered as testing data set? Okay, and where will they be saved? Okay, what variables will hold the training data set, what variables will hold the testing data set? Okay, so for that purpose we have the next line. Xtrain will hold the independent features of the training data set, Xtest will hold the independent features of testing data set, Ytrain will hold the dependent feature of the training data set, Ytest will hold the dependent feature of the testing data set, right? Okay, is equal to, I am using the model that is the package train_test_split. Now it has different parameters. First is X, because X holds all our independent variables, Y holds the dependent variables. Then here you can see one very important term, test_size is equal to 0.5. Now this indicates my split ratio actually. So when I say test_size is equal to 0.25, means what I am trying to say is 25% of my records will be considered for testing data set. Okay, because that is the test size. Okay, then you have the next parameter, which is random state. So random state is 0. It is used to shuffle the data set, shuffle the sequence of the data sets every time you execute the same program or the same function. Okay, so initially I have kept it 0. So here you can see, now if I have mentioned test size as 0.25, now here we have already seen that total how many records are there in our data set? 768. Okay, so out of 768, 25% means 192 records. So in my test data set, that means there will be 192 records, and remaining 75%, that is 576 records, will be there in the training data set. So now we have actually split our data set. So I hope it is very clear till here. Then next very important thing before we actually move on to the implementation of name-based classifier is the functionality called as scaling. Okay, now what do you mean by scaling is, let us say you have a data set of in this case also you have a data set with different type of features. So each of these features has two things. One is the unit of the feature and another is the magnitude of the feature, right? So if there is a lot of difference in the magnitude of each of these features, it becomes difficult to train the model, and even if the model is trained, not necessarily it will give you the correct results for any test data set. So to avoid that, what we have to do is we have to scale down these features. Now for scaling these features, we can use two things. One is normalization and one is standardization. So in this case, we are trying to use standardization. What standardization actually does is it tries to standardizes the features of your data set in such a way that mean is 0 and standard deviation is 1. So that is what exactly standard scaler does. Okay, so for standardizing these features and trying to fit and transform your model in a proper way, we are using this standard scaling. Okay, so that is the second aspect, that is scaling. So again, from sklearn.preprocessing we will import standard scaler. The package is already available. So I write scaler underscore x, that is my variable, is equal to standard scaler. Then scaler underscore x dot fit underscore transform. Now I am trying to fit as well as transform my training data set. Okay, and I again store it in x underscore train. Okay, then I use transform function on my test data set, and again I try to save it in x underscore test. Okay, so I have performed scaling. Now I have to implement the classifier on my data set. Okay, that is on the training data set specifically. So because we are trying to build a model, and then once we have fit the model, we have constructed the model, only then we can test it, right? So now because we have to implement the name-based classifier, again from sklearn.namebase we are importing Gaussian name-based classifier package. Okay, so classifier is equal to Gaussian name-base. Okay, then classifier.fit, I am trying to fit. Okay, and on what I have to implement this classifier? On my training data set. So the parameters that I am passing to it is x train and y train. Okay, now once I use classifier.fit, that means my model is ready. It is already trained on the training data set. So the next part is I want to check whether it is properly trained or not. How do I check? By providing the test data set and checking what are the predicted results. Okay, so how do we do that? For that I will use the function classifier.predict. Okay, and the parameter that we pass to it is x underscore test, because that is my testing data set. So that is being passed to the predict function. The results are stored in y underscore predict. Okay, now I want to check how far my prediction is correct. So for that purpose we use validation, and that can be done using confusion matrix. So let us see how it can be done. So from sklearn.metrics import confusion matrix. Okay, cm is equal to confusion matrix. Now what confusion matrix does is it actually compares your predicted results and actual results. Okay, now remember you have split the entire data set into two parts, training data set as well as testing data set. So even if it is a testing data set, you are aware about the outcome. What exactly is the actual output of your test data set? You are already aware of it. So you can compare that with the predicted results. So that comparison is done by the confusion matrix. And then we have to print the confusion matrix, right? So let us see the output and then I'll show you what exactly is the meaning of confusion matrix. Oh, I guess I haven't, yeah. Now it is supposed to execute from here. Till here. Okay. Just 1 second. Yes, so you can see here the output. This is what is your confusion matrix. Okay, now what this actually means we will understand first. So this is what a confusion matrix looks like. That is, you have got output in this columns. Now what it means is, let us say this side we have the actual output and here we have the predicted output. Okay, so for a binary classification, binary means you will have output as either 0 or 1. So let us say this is 1 and 0, 1 and 0. Okay, now wherever, now how do you remember this confusion matrix is, wherever you have 1, okay, you mention it as P, okay, for predicted output. Wherever you have 1 for predicted output, you write it as P, that is P stands for positive. So in this column of predicted output is for 1, right? So I write P here and P here. Similarly, wherever you have 0 in the predicted output, you write it as N, which indicates negative. So I have 0 here, okay. So I mention N here and N here, which indicates negative, okay. Similarly, another thing that you should remember is for actual output, wherever you have match, you mention it as true, and wherever there is mismatch, you mention as false. Now what this means is, actual output is 1 and predicted is also 1, so that is a match, so that is why we mention true here, right? Now here actual output is 1 but predicted is 0, so it is a mismatch, so we mention here as false, right? Same thing, 0 and 1 is mismatch, so we mention as false. 0 and 0 is a match, so we mention it as true. So this is your confusion matrix. So you can see here the number of correct results is nothing but your diagonal values. That is, this is classified correctly and this is classified correctly. So if you compare this with our output, you can see here what this means. 114 plus 33 is the amount of correct values which have been classified. Okay. Similarly, this 16 plus 29 is equal to total number of misclassified values. So that is what is the advantage of using what? Confusion matrix. Okay. Now remember, you can check here one more thing. This confusion matrix is constructed on the test data set, right? We are comparing test output of the test data set with the predicted values. So as we've already seen in test data set, how many values were there? 25% of the values, 25% of the records are there in the test data set. That means 25% of 768 is nothing but 192. So if you sum up these 114 plus 16 plus 29 plus 33, it is nothing but 192. So that is nothing but confusion matrix. So I hope this is clear. So if any confusion matrix is given to you, you can identify the amount of correct predicted results and amount of mismatches. Okay. So that is why we use confusion matrix. Now the last part of this particular assignment is where you have to display the statistics, or you have to display the probabilities or the performance metrics. Now for any classification in general, we use number of measures. One of them is precision, then we have recall, then we have F1 score, and we have support. So what this means, we will see that. First just I want to show you the output of that. So for that purpose, we already have one more package which you have to import from sklearn.metrics. So from sklearn.metrics you import precision underscore recall underscore F score underscore support. This is the name of the package which you have to specify as it is. Then PRF is a variable that I am using. PRF for precision, recall and F score, right, is equal to name of the package in bracket y test and y predict. Okay, because you want to compare these two. So when you pass these two parameters, based on these two parameters, the package is going to calculate the values of precision, recall, F score and support for us. Okay, so you have to simply display. Now the output of this will go in PRF. PRF is nothing but it is an array. It will hold all the 4 values. PRF or 0 of 0 will hold your precision. PRF of 1 is going to hold the recall value. PRF of 2 is going to hold the F score, and PRF of 3 is going to hold the support. Okay, so because we want to display the output in percentage, you can see here we are multiplying the respective values with 100 so that we get the output in the form of percentage. So let us execute this and check. Yes, so you can see here precision value, recall value, F1 value and support value. Okay, what this support means is, support is nothing but the number of occurrences of each class in y test. So that means here it is 130, that means number of 0 values in the test data set is 130 and number of 1 values in the test data set is 62. Again you can verify 130 plus 62 is equal to 192, right? So that is nothing, support is nothing but number of occurrences. Now let us try and understand what this precision recall F1 measure is. So let us say if this is your confusion matrix. Okay, so what precision says is, okay, what precision says is, out of the total predicted positive values. Now in this, what is the total predicted positive values? 1 is for positive, right? So total predicted positive values is this, right? That is TP plus FP. Out of this, how many values are actually positive? Actually positive means predicted is also positive and actual also is positive. So which is nothing but TP. So precision actually means TP upon TP plus FP, which you can see here, right? Okay, now this is for positive values or 1 value. Same thing will differ when we are calculating it for negative values, that is for 0 values. We'll see that. Now let's move on to recall. Recall is what? Out of the total actual positive values, how many of them are actually truly positive? Okay, that means the only difference in this precision and recall, in precision we are checking positive values out of total predicted positive, that is out of this, and in recall we are checking total positive values out of actual positive values, that is out of this, because this is for actual positive and this is for predicted positive, right? So recall would be TP upon TP plus Fn. So you can see that here, right? Now same thing will differ if we want to calculate precision and recall on negative values, that is for 0 values. So how the definition will change? So precision in that case would be out of total predicted negative values, how many of them are actually negative? So out of total predicted negative, how many are actual negative. That means Tn upon Tn plus Fn. So you can see that Tn upon Tn plus Fn. Similarly, recall would be out of total actual negative values, how many of them are actually negative. So it would be Tn upon Tn plus Fp. Tn upon Tn plus Fp, right? Okay, so that is the meaning of recall. Then third important thing was F1 score. So how do you calculate F1 score? It has a formula. It is 2 into precision into recall divided by precision plus recall. This is the formula of calculating the F1 score. And last, which is not mentioned here, is if you want to calculate the accuracy of your model, how you will calculate accuracy. Now we have seen from the confusion matrix, number of correctly predicted results is your nothing but your diagonal values, right? That is TP plus TN. So this is total number of correct predictions out of total predictions will obviously give us the accuracy. So that is nothing but the formula for accuracy. So the same thing is being displayed in our output here. So this is precision for 0 values, this is recall for 0 values, this is F1 for 0 values, and this is support, that is number of occurrences of 0 values in our output. Same thing is for 1 values. So this is nothing but the performance matrix of our classifier. So that is all about the demonstration part. Let us switch back. Yeah. So next 3 parts, as it is our usual practice. First is test cases. Let us have a look at the test cases. What I want you to do is first 3 test cases. First is you have to check whether there are any missing values in the data set. I have already shown how to check. Okay. If there are no missing values, then you introduce some missing values and again execute the program and see what is the change in the summary. Then third is you try and execute the program without using any scaling. Okay, see how it affects the output, right? Then you check the impact of change in the split ratio or the test size. That is, in our program we have used the test size as 0.25. You can change it maybe to 30% or 40% or 50% and so on and so forth, and check the change in the output. Okay, and last is I want you to evaluate and display the performance matrix values without using the package. Okay, so if you don't want to use the package, simply you have to use the formula. So you just apply the formula and check how you are able to display the results. So this is about the test cases. Then let us see the sample problem statements. So in the first case, instead of using naive-Bayes classifier, you try and check the same problem statement you implement using some other classification algorithm. So that is the first problem statement. The second, third and fourth and fifth, the problem statement remains the same, only your data set is changing, right? So for second, you have to implement it on iris, then image data set, then optical recognition data set, and then connectionist data set. So that is your sample problem statements. And last is your questions for oral. So I have prepared some set of 20 questions for your oral. So you just have a look and prepare yourself for each of these questions. It is not only helpful for your lab assignment or practical and oral exam, it will be also beneficial for you for doing your projects, for interviews. Okay, the recruiters may also ask you about these things, okay, during your interview. So it will be also beneficial for you from interview point of view. So yes, I guess that is all about this particular assignment. So I hope you have understood all the concepts of this assignment. Still, if you have any queries, you please feel free to drop a mail on ngsharma@kkvak.edu.in. So see you for the next lecture. In the next lecture we will discuss the next assignment, that is assignment number 3 for laboratory practice 1. So thank you so much for patient listening.